Greetings, OUXers. Welcome back to the UX Level Up podcast. This is episode 12 in the ORCA series, the series where I outline each step of the ORCA process. So we are on 12 of 16, and we give an entire episode dedicated to each step. So this is the third episode in this series that is featuring the one and only Jake Zukowski, our resident intense product culture expert who has taken ownership of the prioritization round of the ORCA process in our latest version of the Object-Oriented UX Masterclass 3.0. In today's episode, we are digging into the final step of prioritization, attribute prioritization, which sounds really nerdy because it is. And this is where the real complexity and power of super strategic UX really starts to kick in full force. So Jake shares his expertise on 3 big ideas in this episode. 1, how to juggle the different priorities of marketing and SEO and product and personalization teams and actually bring them into alignment. We're going to talk about how to design for user trust, even when the business wants to hide certain things from the users. And number 3, how you as a designer can level up by leading these tricky conversations with empathy and strategy and confidence. So if you are hungry for more of this kind of thinking, we will be launching the Self-Paced Object-Oriented UX Masterclass 3.0 very soon. We are in a complete refresh now. I am very proud of this latest version of the Masterclass. Y'all, we have made something so high quality, and the feedback from our students viewing it for the first time in cohort 11 is just already so stellar. So if you want to be the first to know when the Self-Paced OOUX Masterclass becomes available, go ahead, hop on the waitlist at OUX.com/SPMC waitlist, or you can go to OUX.com/masterclass just to learn more, and the link to get on the waitlist is there too. Okay, it's going to be back soon. It's coming soon, but let's go ahead and jump into this episode all about attribute prioritization. If you're looking to level up your UX, content, or product design practice to confidently and joyfully tackle complexity, ask the million-dollar questions, and design digital systems that actually work, you are so in the right place. Welcome to the UX Level Up podcast. I'm Sophia Prater, and for over a decade, I've been teaching professionals how to make the most valuable and often invisible parts of UX gloriously visible. We will untangle the structure beneath the surface before jumping into screens, saving time, money, and headaches, and having so much fun doing it. Together, let's UX collaboration, break down silos, and build shared understanding that sets everyone up for success. Let's become the systems thinkers that our teams, and quite honestly, the world, are so desperately craving. Let's level up our practice and redefine what it means to be a UX designer. Let's jump into it. Jake Zukowski, welcome back to the UX Level Up podcast. This is our 3rd episode in a row with you. We've already learned so much about, oh my gosh, relationship prioritization, CTA prioritization. We are here to talk about attribute prioritization. But in case anybody is just dropping in here and they don't know anything about you, they haven't listened to the last 2 episodes, we will link them down below. We'll probably be referencing them. Can you introduce yourself real quick and let us know what you're all about?
I am Jake Zukowski. I am all about creating what I would call professional occult software. So right now, my company Cosmic Plumbing is creating a professional astrology software package. We are going to move into tarot eventually, and I'm very excited about my ORCA sprint that I'm going to do for tarot.
Yes, OOUXing tarot. Oh, so fun.
So good. Oh, good. And helping out the folks that I would consider to have pretty poor tools, just like from a design perspective, in a pretty complex domain to finally have something that they can use and love.
Awesome. So you are a founder of a startup using OOUX through and through to OOUX your business, OOUX your products. Tarot is
My
on
marketing.
the horizon. OOUX the marketing. Where were you before that?
So HelloFresh, before that, I was the global vice president of research and design and in Berlin. And then before that, I was the executive creative director of the Berlin studio for Fjord. And I was the executive creative director in Seattle for Fjord. So I am multi-continental man of mystery, man of design mystery. And I am so happy and blessed to have chosen a career that allowed me so much flexibility and the domains that I was designing for and the people I was helping. So I'm glad that I can take all of that knowledge and try my hardest to distill it down so that you can go on my journey as well. I would love that.
And like actually, while you were at HelloFresh, you came onto the podcast. So this is actually your fourth podcast,
This is my fourth episode.
fourth episode,
Exactly.
three in this little series that we're doing within the wider ORCA series, where we're talking all about the prioritization round.
Do
So
I take am I the champion now? Is four the highest anyone's ever
I
been?
think you might be the champion. I don't know. Carolyn Sober James, I think, has three. So
Okay.
I think you are the champion now.
Blowing
But
CSJ out of the
when I
water. Let's
talk to
go.
Allie and Allie and I do 4 episodes in a row because Allie O. Fisher, she's owning the representation round. We're gonna come in and we're gonna talk about the O's, the R's, the C's, and the A's. So then Allie is gonna beat you. But you'll be the reigning
Okay.
champion for a hot minute.
For now,
Yes.
I'll take it. I'll take it for
And then
now.
we'll have you back next year and y'all will be just neck and neck. So it's not a competition though. We're all one big
No,
happy family here.
exactly.
So yes, I will link that other episode. I will link the episodes that we just did in the show notes, as well as the episode from like 2023 or something, like
4?
2020.
Yeah, I
Maybe
can't
was it
remember.
just last year?
I don't
I
remember.
don't remember
I don't
either, but
remember.
I feel like anyway, so that's a really awesome episode where Jake talks about bringing OUX to HelloFresh into the team and learning about OUX for the first time from shout out to Erica Queen. Yeah, so that was a great episode, but we're here to talk about attribute prioritization
Yes, ma'am.
and I am super excited. What are your feelings on attribute prioritization? What do we want to talk about? What do you want to get into?
So for attribute prioritization in the masterclass, in advanced masterclass, really what I'm going to be talking about is the need for either at small companies for you to wear lots of different hats and think about attributes from a large variety of angles, or if you're working in a larger organization, how to work with your friends across many different domains and think about how they think about the objects, relationships, calls to action, and attributes within their domain. Because what the brand team cares about is different than what the marketing team cares about, which is different than the product team cares about. And this
Mm,
can sometimes cause lots of stress. And how do we make sure that we are not only building great products for users, but also building great products to support SEO, to enable personalization, and all of that jazz?
yeah.
So we will not be going through enough detail within the course to make you a marketer, to make you an SEO expert, personalization guru, anything like that. But we will bring in these different dimensions so you can facilitate those conversations with a wide variety of folks in these roles in your organization. Or if your organization doesn't have them yet, ways in which you can eventually think like this and then work with these people in the future.
That sounds so cool. So the way we break down complexity in the ORCA process, we break it down by O's, R's, C's, and A's. So objects, relationships, CTAs, and attributes. And we get down to this like granular level of attributes. That is where like some of the conflicts I think really start coming up. It might not be at the
Oh,
object, like
yes.
whether this object is in or out. It's like, how do we prioritize these little bits and pieces? Where is like this little bit of marketing copy going, or where is the
Yes.
price going to go, right? Or where is the discount going to go?
Pricing.
Oh, the pricing,
It's
where
it,
the price
it's the
attribute,
pricing.
where do we put it? And
Yes, it's the pricing, it's the trust information, it's
mm,
the certifications, it's anything that your business wants to throw in front of the user to make them close the deal or close
mm,
the sale or whatever that
yeah,
is, but making sure that like you understand that, and this will start informing representation. So when
right.
you bring Alio Fisher in, then she will be very thankful that you have done this work ahead of time. But you have to understand how, just because a user might visually prioritize things X, Y, and Z, that might be different than how a business would want those things to be kind of bundled together. And so this is where things get really tricky between what the user says from a ranking perspective under an object versus how it might be represented, and thinking about that in terms of like, what would a marketer think? What would a
Mm.
personalization expert think? What would a growth team member, pricing expert think? Things like that.
And that is just, I mean, to have those lenses as a designer, to have all those kind of business oriented lenses and to be able to look at like the individual building blocks of a system from those lenses is going to just be such a freaking power move as a designer to be able to
Oh,
do this
yeah.
and have these conversations. And like, again, like you don't have to be an SEO expert, you don't have to be a marketing expert, but you got to know you're in like where to have these conversations. And that's so cool that we're going to get into this in attribute prioritization. So to zoom out actually real quick, because I don't think we said it in this episode because we're just binge recording all of these episodes. This is our third one with Jake. So if it's not abundantly clear, Jake is really taking over the prioritization round in ORCA. So we are working on refreshing, refilming the entire masterclass and the OUX advanced masterclass. And Jake is owning prioritization. He's owning the entire round. Now I'm going to be woven into there, and it's going to be based on everything that we've already have in prioritization round, but he is going to be taking it up a notch, bringing a lot of his business expertise, his experience, working with clients, working in companies, and working in these, what do we call them? Intense product
Yeah,
cultures.
it's intense product. Intense product culture is hypothesis
Mm,
driven, experimentation led product cultures. These are intense product cultures. I
yes.
think I use
Yes. Well,
the big
you
intense
gotta
voice.
make sales. You gotta make sales. You gotta make money. And being a designer within a context like that, there are certain challenges
Yeah.
that you have a lot of experience with and have had successes with. And you are going to bring that to the OUX masterclass. Every single part of the masterclass is being touched and upgraded. And I'm just super happy to have Jake owning Prio and yeah, helping us really
Yeah,
talk to the
especially
biz.
exactly. And especially when it comes to things that start feeling like the new hotness when they come in and all of a sudden they feel incredibly disruptive, but really are based in the same principles that we've learned about within OUX philosophy and ORCA methodology. So when the business comes to you and says, like, what's our AI strategy? Or when the business comes to you and says, like, we need to think about augmented reality, like let's say I'm working at Meta, things like that, personalization, recommendations,
Mm.
all of that, those conversations don't have to put you on the back foot and start bringing in more tactical thinking, that you can actually leverage your strategic thinking and bring in attribute prioritization methodology in order to have a conversation about how we are going to feed an AI engine in
Yeah.
order to create great experiences, or what does recommendation and personalization look like from the attribute level, because we can just say we're into recommendations, we're into personalizations, but what does that
What does that
mean?
actually
And
mean?
what does it mean? And when Marisa comes into the masterclass and the advanced masterclass, you're going to start seeing how the requirements round and the prioritization round really have a very strong
Mhm.
interlinking, and they're holding hands together through this process.
Yes, Marisa Montaldi, she's owning the requirements round. She is like our UX librarian, our beautiful, nerdy UX librarian who is going to be coming in and just really helping streamline the requirements. And really, like, that is one of the things that I think is so that's going to be just such an up level of the masterclass is we're going to be talking so much more on how these rounds, the rounds of the ORCA process, the discovery round, the requirements round, the prioritization round and the representation round, how they all intersect and like basically getting that clarity in the requirements round so that you can have beautiful prioritization and you really understand your prioritization. Like they are just locked together. So I actually have a story I want to tell and I want to get your reaction to this.
Oh,
So this is
okay.
from the Jobs to Be Done playbook. I recently
Hmm.
interviewed Jim Callback on the podcast. I will link that episode below as well, too, please. So this case study is from CarMax. This is by Jake Mitchell. So Jake Mitchell was a principal product designer at CarMax, and he tells this story in the book of basically being tasked. His team was tasked on figuring out how to make the photos better of the cars. So this is like for those that don't know about CarMax, you might know about Auto Trader. It's like a competitor of Auto Trader. You're buying cars. We buy our car at CarMax. So they were tasked to like make the photos better, which is like such a funny, like, I don't know, project, right? Make the photos better, make the photos
Yeah.
work better. So this
Yeah.
is like the photo team. So the photos are attributes. This is core content attributes on the vehicle object, right? Which is basically their revenue object. We talked about revenue objects in relationship prioritization. So go back to that episode if you want to hear us
Go check it
to
out.
check it out. We'll talk more about revenue objects and it might come up here, but basically an object that makes the business money. So our car object or our vehicle object at CarMax is a revenue object and it has an attribute of photos. Okay. And they were doing things like, well, let's increase the resolution of the photos or let's go in and like make the carousel better, or let people like zoom in and like they can pinch and zoom versus like having to click the little zoom button. I'm making up stuff, but it's like was things like that. Like it was interface level, surface level design, y'all, surface level design, and really just throwing shit at the wall of the universe to see if it stuck. And nothing was working, and nothing was like making like actually increasing conversion or anything that they were doing. And then they started doing some jobs to be done thinking where which is basically just asking why. And we can do this at the attribute level where we think, what is the job of this attribute? What is the job of photos? So they did this research and they realized that the job of the photo, people were zooming into the steering wheel, and they were zooming into the steering wheel to be able to see the little Bluetooth icon on the steering wheel, because what they wanted to see is, does it actually have hands-free dialing? Or they're zooming into the door to see if it like has the electric windows or something like that. So they're looking at the photos to see how it connects to each
To see attributes.
features of the
Yeah.
actual product. And they're like, oh my gosh,
Amazing.
we can actually help with that. And that actually helped with the design, because it actually, you actually think about the purpose of what is this attribute. And then, so one thing that happened that I think was interesting, that, well, I would love your just like general reaction to this story, because I think this is like such a cool story about asking why, which is really something that we do in the requirements round, but then that informs how we prioritize something and how we might even like prioritize something else. Like, well, it lists the features. You can even like filter by that, but people didn't trust it. They wanted to see it. They didn't trust the metadata. They wanted to actually see it on the car. So I just think that's so freaking interesting. Such a cool story about prioritizing effort, right? Like prioritizing, like putting effort into this one attribute of photos on the car. And that was like something that kind of like what we talked about in some previous episodes of inheriting the strategy. So somebody was like, we got to
Yeah.
put more effort into photos, into this one attribute. We got to put time, we got to put money, we got to put research into it. How did they know to do that? I don't know, actually. And then
Yeah.
figuring out the why actually really like influencing the design, and even maybe figuring out how photos were prioritized, how it was connected to features, and all sorts of other design decisions that came out of that.
Well, we're visual thinkers, so it makes perfect sense to me that we would take the object that is the car and we would look at the attributes on that object in order to and trust whether those attributes were or were not there. And to think about the object of like a car and have the attributes listed out, that's great for sorting and filtering. That's also great for certain detail levels. But there is a certain it's a high consideration purchase, you know? When you're dealing with high consideration purchases, you need to feel
Mm.
the thing. You need to wrap your arms around it in a certain way. I need,
Mhm.
metaphorically speaking, you can't wrap your arms around a car. I don't have arms that
I
long.
know.
So it makes perfect sense that you would want to see that stuff because that's how we act as human beings. Now, I don't know if there was a better way other than like I love that story. I love the idea that you learn something about the trustworthiness of attributes through pictures, and that's really what CarMatch was all
Mhm.
about from a functional aspect. I do wonder if there was a lost opportunity that didn't show up in the jobs to be done around the emotional aspect as well.
Mm.
Visualizing yourself in the car. Is this a car that, if I'm a salesperson, is this something that I would drive up and my clients would be really impressed with me when, if I drove up? Like, what does this convey about me, this
Mhm.
car? There are aspects of that I do wonder if they are captured within a job to be done
Yeah.
framework. But yeah, I high consideration purchases, it's difficult to convey that level of object permanence, I guess,
Mhm.
without having I don't know, like this is where I guess the promise of things like virtual reality and
Yeah.
augmented reality were going to come in that have yet to materialize.
This also just makes me think of like, okay, so when it comes to prioritization, to bring this back to that conversation, like thinking about how to prioritize effort, like, okay, this is something that we
Yeah.
want to optimize, like this one attribute. How do we optimize this one
Oh
attribute? Right.
yes.
But also like knowing how important attributes are to users' decision making. So this is like really this intersection of like when we talk about prioritization in the masterclass and in ORCA in general, we talk about the business and the user prioritization. So when we talk about the user prioritization, it's
Yes.
like, where are we positioning this thing? Like, how easy is it to get to it? How much do we highlight this? And the business prioritization is like, okay, how much does it cost to have this? How much money does it make for us? Like doing all the beautiful cost benefit matrices. But like thinking about this intersection of, okay, when somebody is deciding on whether they're going to buy this freaking car, like what did you call it? A high value
Consideration
a
purchase.
high value, yeah, like it's a big freaking deal to make this decision.
It's a big freaking deal.
And sometimes even
Yeah.
just like subscriptions, like it might just be $9 a month, but you're like, you kind of, it feels heavier because it's something that's going to like come out of your pocket every month. So subscriptions could be.
Well, also, there is this optimization that always happens in subscriptions now, which is essentially 2 months free.
Hmm.
So it's $9 a month or $99 for the year. And all of a sudden now you've turned something that was a low consideration purchase, $9 a
Hmm.
month, into a high consideration purchase. Like, am I going to use this for a year? Is this something
Yeah.
that I want to see stuck around in my life?
Yeah. And that gets us into like, okay, so when I'm looking at the attributes, which attributes help the user make the decision, right? Or
Exactly.
like, and then we can maybe even get into some like manipulative patterns of like number remaining, right? We're like putting urgency into it, or
Oh,
like
yeah. Loss
number of
aversion.
people
Yes.
looking at this car right now. So
Correct.
like, okay, so like how do we, when we're thinking about prioritization and we're thinking about like, okay, like how much does it help if we're thinking about a revenue object, like a product, or it could be
Yeah.
so many other things. We talk about revenue objects in the relationship prioritization episode, but if you're thinking about a revenue object and all the attributes on it, and for each attribute, it's like how to weigh it based on like, is this helping make a decision? Is this is this helping conversion? And like the kind of like
Yeah.
the ethics behind that too.
Yeah. And the other problem that you're going to run into is how do you represent this attribute? Because you can take an attribute and represent it with a text string. So I can say Bluetooth enable and yes. And that's relatively easy from an engineering perspective to do if you have all of that data. Or you can start using visualizations on these things. So
Mhm.
gas mileage over time, right? So maybe we'll use this. So like gas mileage is 23 city, 30 highway. Okay. But gas mileage over time, my gas mileage might deteriorate over time. And like now all of a sudden I'm showing this as a visualization. Maybe that's the thing. And
Mhm.
like from an engineering perspective, that's much heavier and much harder. This is something that we're dealing with at Cosmic at my company right now, where I could easily give astrologers a whole big set of attributes just by text
Mhm.
strings to do. And a lot of software does this today. But instead, if we wanted to create something that was more meaningful and more understandable from a data visualization perspective, then we would have to put in the effort to do that. So that's
Yeah.
one consideration, right? The engineering aspect of that.
And that
But back
makes
to your
it more
question,
expensive to show, right? Like, and to
oh yeah.
build
Yeah, and
when
it's
there's a
always more expensive,
visualization.
right? And it's hard to measure about whether or not that is a good investment of time and money to do. And therefore, usually if things are hard to measure, we don't do them because we say, well, it's hard to measure and therefore we don't have a good measure. So therefore we don't do that. If you want more about that
Mhm.
phenomenon, listen to our last episode about CTA requirements.
And
But back to your thing. Yeah, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, I'm glad you brought up metadata over time. So shout out to metadata over time. We're going to be talking about that in the advanced masterclass. So check that out. More about metadata over time. So it comes up
Yeah.
all the time.
But when talking about the ethics of which attributes that you surface and how you surface them in a trustworthy way, I think about the primary place where that might exist is like on the pricing page, right? So,
Mm,
how do you make sure that people understand what they're buying, how long they're buying it for, and what it means to their transformation journey? One of the
mm,
biggest problems that I've seen in pricing pages today is especially for tools that require you or that have AI capabilities to them is all of a sudden now there's a base price of a piece of software, $99 per year for the software. And you get AI credits. And so now all of a sudden there's two things. I'm
mm.
buying a monthly subscription and I'm buying a credits thing.
Yeah.
And I understand that the reason what we do that as a business is because we want to make sure that we don't overrun our costs and that these benefits don't start becoming, we don't want them to be nooses around our neck all of
Hmm.
a sudden.
Hmm.
Like we can't pay for these benefits anymore. But offloading that complexity onto the user seems like the wrong way to approach business, just from a usability
Hmm.
perspective
Hmm.
kind of thing. So for as much as we talk about like how being upfront with people about what they're buying and using the attributes and describing them in a very structured, rigorous way, can also put complexity upon the buyer to understand what the heck you're even talking about. So
Right.
it's all this very gentle balance that we have to
Yeah.
talk about here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually stuck on, like, the gas mileage over time, like, gas mileage going down over time, which is, like,
Yeah.
one, like, what does that mean, and why does it go
What can I
down
do
over
about
time?
it?
Why does what can I do about it? And we talked about I mean, contra objects was definitely a thing. We didn't get to talk about that, but we'll talk about that in the advanced masterclass,
Advanced
advanced
masterclass, I
masterclass.
believe.
But we're talking about it all in these episodes too, so that's exciting. Then we talked about contra relationships and contra CTAs. Can we have contra attributes? Like, it gives the
You know,
user
I
like, gas mileage over time is like, it's always gonna go down, right? And, like, do we
yeah,
just not show that? Because we don't wanna, like, even though it's good information and we might wanna show, like, everybody's, yeah, it's transparency, right? You're showing, like, this is what it is, and, like, maybe Auto Trader doesn't have that, so it's good to see because Auto Trader doesn't have it and we have it. But it's like, ooh, I'm seeing something bad about the car. And I'm wondering, even from the visualization, if you could show like average gas mileage over time going down, and then that this is like, ooh, this is gonna go down over time, but it's gonna be like better than average.
understood. That's exactly where I was going to go, which is like instead of it being the raw number, if you talk about it in terms of an average or whatever,
Mhm.
that might be the right way to do something to deliver. You want to make sure that you're delivering good news and bad news with the full context. So this can cut both ways. If you're delivering someone bad news, you don't want to do it in a way that is either emotionally manipulative or it's hiding some fact,
Mhm.
right? So like doing something like gas mileage over time and it decreasing might give you the wrong impression that this car is bad. But if you see it in terms of averages, actually you might say to yourself, oh, okay, actually this car performs better. You didn't have enough context to even understand what that thing meant. And so that was a poor design decision that
Mhm.
that we had made. When it comes to things like contra CTAs, I know that we've already talked a little bit about this, but like manipulative patterns such as emotional manipulation to make someone feel bad for doing a contra CTA, like unsubscribing from a service. You have to be very careful about that level of like manipulation. And that manipulation can also show up in attribute prioritization and the attribute data as well.
Mhm.
Essentially, if you get anything from these 3 episodes from me, it's that businesses do best when they are aligned with the needs and wants of their users. And when things start separating, things start drifting away, where the business is clouding information or reframing information in a way that is not beneficial to a data driven discussion with the consumer, that's when things get very
Mhm.
problematic.
And
That is, yeah,
I was just
go
gonna
ahead,
jump in and say, and I think that's
please.
probably no surprise to most people listening. We're all like, yeah, but like the cool thing that we're doing here, the thing that I want to like highlight and double click on is that we're helping you identify those areas of tension so that you can be
Yes.
proactive about it, and really helping you, actually giving you strategies to be proactive about it, so that when you come and you're looking at your design, you're like, okay, here's a potential contra attribute that might actually bring people away from a purchase, but it increases transparency and trust. And so, how do I come to the business and be like, I think this would be a really valuable thing to show because none of our competitors are showing it. It's like shows a lot of
Yep.
bravery. It can show trust. It can show like we are telling you more about this vehicle than anybody else is telling you. And to be able to make the case for that in a strategic, diplomatic way is
Yeah.
amazing. So it doesn't
And we're
come and bite
contextual.
you in the ass. It doesn't come back around and it's like, oh, because we weren't
Exactly.
thinking about it. So we want you designers so that we can empower UX designers so that y'all can have a seat at the table. We want you to be able to have these conversations in really professional ways. And Jake, that's what you're bringing to the
Yeah.
table to elevate the whole prioritization round so we can have those conversations.
Exactly. Contextualizing it in a way that has I keep saying adult conversation, this idea that you are having an adult conversation with your users. Let me tell you, this is a thing. I don't even know if this is a thing. We're just going
Adult
for it. Gas mileage
conversation with
goes
your
down.
users or with your business.
Both
Okay.
with your users and your business. With the user, look, gas mileage goes down over time. It happens to all cars. I can tell you this is the way in which this car is predicted to go down in gas mileage. This is the average. You can make a decision.
Yeah.
The adult conversation with the business, which is showing this information, will breed trust. And if you live in one of these hypothesis led, experimentation driven product cultures, you can actually use this moment to say, we're going to test this attribute. We're going to test this out to see how much conversion rate we might be losing here, for example, knowing full well that we might be optimizing lifetime value, which is hard to measure. And so we would say, like, we expect that we're going to lose some amount of conversions, but we also expect that people will have higher trustworthiness with our business. And you can measure both sides of that.
Yeah. And I think we talked about the measuring piece a lot in our CTA Prio conversation. I just love the idea, like, not only having these adult conversations with a business, like we can be like, we're coming in because we have our eyes wide open, like we understand what the business is looking for. We can identify these contra O's, R's, C's, and A's, and come to the table with like, not armed. I'm like, all my metaphors are very warlike right now, but like, like you come prepared. Let's just say you come prepared.
Yeah.
But like also being
You've got
adult.
a pocket full of great ideas, a pocket full of great methodology.
Yes, you're ready. You're ready. You're not like, you don't feel ambushed by when the business is like, well, what about blah, blah, blah. And all our sales are going to go down by 7% when you don't, because you're ready. But having these adult conversations with your users too is like getting to the heart of like, it's that trust, because I feel like we keep, like that's a theme that I did not expect was going to be in here. But of course it's a theme of like trust, and the user trusting in the business, and even the business trusting the user too, of like, you're all adults. If you're, catering to adults, you're all adults here, and we're not going to infantilize you, because nobody likes to feel infantilized. And I think like we are often like, yes, it's like, don't make me think. Thank you, Steve Krug. Like, we don't want to make our users have to do, like, we don't want to increase their cognitive load. We know they're doing 18 other things while they're using our application. But at the same time, we want to let them know that we respect them, right? Like, we're going to show you the information that you need to see. We're going to do the best job we can, but we respect your decision-making power.
Yeah, exactly. And this can also extend from stakeholder conversations as well. So to bring it back to HelloFresh for a second, at HelloFresh, it was an organization that was mid-size when I started and turned large size through the pandemic, because we had a lot of success back then. And what ends up happening is when companies go from mid-size to large size, all of a sudden, when you're wearing lots of hats, now you trade in your lots of hats for very deep domain expertise. That's great, because now you get to think about your problem very deeply, and that's
like on the team.
That's usually great. Yeah, yeah, exactly, on the team. So like, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a SEO expert, whether you're a data scientist, like all of a sudden now you can think very deeply about your domain.
Yeah.
But the problem is that with that deep domain thinking, now you're narrowing of window of like what attributes you care about much stronger. So the marketing team believes that the attributes for this object are this. The data science team believes it's this. The SEO team believes it's this. The product team believes it's this. And now all of a sudden you have competing priorities, usually with people that have competing measures on top of them. And you are facilitating that adult conversation with those disparate groups. So with this 100% focus on expertise, the systemic thinking can sometimes be thrown out the window. The strategic thinking can be left behind for these like domain level tactics. So for example, when I was working at HelloFresh, the data science team's sole job was to make sure that we were getting the data necessary in order to do good personalization. And therefore, there are certain attributes that we need to put in front of people in order for them to react to them, but then also, and then CTAs for them to react to those things. But then also, like, there was a self-generating loop then of like, if you get this data, we can make better personalization decisions. Sometimes this was contrary to the way in which people thought about using HelloFresh, or the way in which the C-suite thought about what HelloFresh needed to look like. And so when you get to these, what I call like these domain narrowing moments, and you get caught into tactics discussion about how we can best help personalization, a recommendation, for example,
So
that can
as an
move you away
example,
from the big picture.
like as an example,
Yeah,
so like the data science team, like they want to know how to recommend meals to people, and they needed to like
exactly.
show certain attributes, and people needed to like upvote or downvote or take little actions on
It actually
those.
was it was weirder than that. So the way that the team thought about it was it on what attributes are people dwelling, or on what meals are people dwelling.
Mm,
And so we had a page that was pretty compact, and so therefore you couldn't make a lot of good inferences about what people were attracted to or not attracted to. So what they were asking me to do was essentially make something that was hard to use, but would give them very concrete data so that they can make personalization
I just spread
recommendations.
everything
And so
out more or something, so like we could see
they
where
straight up
like
they straight up were like, we should be more like Tinder. So imagine that you get a box and then there is a meal and you swipe left or swipe right. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing Tinder for HelloFresh. That's insane. That's not the way people shop for food.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Competing. So, like, to bring this all together here, like, what we
Yeah.
want to help you do, especially in the prioritization round of the OOUX Masterclass and the advanced OOUX Masterclass, which are all completely getting a refresh and they're going to be coming out this fall. But, like, what we're really trying to do here is to help you be the person who can facilitate these difficult adult conversations between
Yep.
competing priorities, right? From competing teams. And when you're that person, like even as a individual contributor, mid-level designer, you can be that person to help bring people
Absolutely.
together. And this is the crux of servant leadership because you're helping everybody else make good decisions and build a better product together. And when you can make
Yeah.
everybody else look good because you are juggling these competing priorities and you have understanding of these competing priorities, and then you can kind of say, all right, let's come together to prioritize this collaboratively in the collaborative aspect that the ORCA process is. I mean, it was built for collaboration and to bring cross-functional teams together, right? So that we could all get on the same
Absolutely.
freaking page and sing together. And like, we're just, arms crossed, going forward in the same direction, teams amplifying each other instead of diluting each other's expertise. Like, I just cannot say enough, like, what a beautiful thing this is when you can be that designer. I mean, it is such a level up for your
Yeah.
career, for like your retention to be that person. Like, you're the most valuable person on the team because you're making everybody else more valuable and you're making them feel heard and bringing all these competing efforts together. Awesome.
I think we think that businesses are cold, logical beasts. But in fact, what I'm trying to teach you in the prioritization round is that the more people you have to talk to, the more what we say is competing priorities that come in, but also the more emotions that come into the conversation. You, as a designer, are uniquely gifted in understanding how to empathize with people. And now I'm saying, instead of just empathizing with your users, how do you empathize with the people that are representing the various pillars of your business? And those people have thoughts, desires, needs, wants.
Mhm.
They're the same as your users. They're business folks that you see more often and know by their first names and know their kids and pets names,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so bring your empathy, bring
Ugh.
your whole strategic self to these conversations, and try your hardest to make sure that you're doing something good for the business, but also for the user. That's really, if you get anything from the prioritization round, it's really that.
That is so good. Like to be able to transmute the empathy that you have for your users to stakeholders, business stakeholders, and team
Yeah.
members that have different competing agendas, and to bring that empathy together and help foster empathy amongst the teams. I mean, this is not easy stuff. This is not easy stuff, but
No.
that's why most of us designers don't do it, right? And
Yeah.
seriously, when you become the designer that can do this, you are breathing rarefied air, right? Like it is not an
Really.
easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to learn. There's nothing easy about the OOUX Masterclass, okay? And the certification. It's not, people have called it one of the hardest professional development things that they've ever done, but always so freaking
But the
worth
most
it.
valuable one.
So freaking worth it.
For
because
sure.
you will be breathing rarefied air if you can do this work. And hopefully this episode helped. Jake, thank you for coming on the UX Level Up podcast for the last 3 episodes. It was so cool to have you here. And y'all,
Good to be here.
make sure, come on and join us, OOUX.com/certification. Jake's going to be dropping all of this new content, and it's going to be a real party, y'all. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. If you think that your design journey is going to lead you to VP, Chief Design Officer, I want you to actually be a founder and CEO and use design throughout your entire career. But if you feel like that's where your journey is going, this is your tool set.
Yep.
I'm telling you.
Yep. Track to leadership for sure, no matter where you are in your career. So cheers.
Exactly.
Happy OUXing, everybody.
Happy OUXing.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the UX Level Up podcast. If you want to connect with me, Sophia, please follow me on Instagram at SophiaVUX, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Sophia Prater. I'm pretty easy to find there. Our music was brought to you by Ruby Vell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Thanks again for listening.